situation either. Trying to understand it all seemed foolish, considering how nothing had made sense since he walked in here. Suddenly there was a loud crash behind him. He turned around to see an orc with sharp teeth growling angrily. The soldiers fired their guns, but the bullets did nothing. He tried to attack the orc, but it was as if his efforts were in vain. Then, someone unexpected jumped forward with an axe and swiftly struck behind the orc's knees. The orc crumpled to the ground. A blue-haired man, the once trembling weakling from earlier, revealed that an orc's weakness was its lower body. They could be taken down easily by making them lose their balance. The soldiers stood in shock, wondering who this person was. The blue-haired man, who had been frightened by a small goblin not long ago, now seemed to know everything. His actions were anything but clumsy. The blue-haired man easily finished off the orc. But the ordeal was far from over. 2 more orcs slowly emerged from the portal, growling menacingly, getting their attention, but he was shocked to see the kid running toward the orcs. He remembers that it was the kid who was begging his father to buy him a monkey wrench just a couple of hours ago. Even with the knowledge of what the orc's weakness is, it's reckless to fight an orc with just that information, especially for a young boy with that small body. However, he notices that the little boy is just casually slaughtering orcs, as if it isn't his first time doing so. But then he notices that it wasn't just the kid, because the lady in the cashier area was simply rolling a chain in the air. He remembers that she was the employee who cut the bubble wrap. She is displaying similar behaviour and is currently taking down orcs left and right without the slightest trace of emotion in her eyes. Then he realised that the man named Kim Boan, who is currently slashing at an orc body with an axe, is the same person who is praying on his knees as he was being attacked by a monster. Also, that little kid who was throwing a tantrum at his father like a regular child, and that female employee who had spoken to him in a warm and kind tone, was simply attacking the orcs. It made him wonder what on earth is going on. Then he heard the captain telling the soldiers to hold their fire and calling them idiots. Then behind him, he heard the people cheering that the god heard their prayers and they are saved. He wonders what is the difference between the people who suddenly changed and fought the orcs and those who didn't, and what caused their sudden change. Then a system pops up in front of him telling him that there is no tutorial in that game. However, he may ask 3 questions about the game, so he should choose his questions carefully. Our main character has a nickname, and it was given to him when he entered the world's most ruthless mercenary company and roamed the battlefields. It was Fearless, one who does not fear anything. It's a nickname given by the foreigners in his team, as he always kept his cool and exercised calm judgment regardless of the situation. He was thankful for those traits because he was able to survive amid a chaotic battlefield full of bullets and debris. The system explained to him that the right to ask questions is given to all humans who have been selected as players, making him once again realize that it would be foolish to try to understand the entire situation and say that it wasn't even funny anymore. He doesn't doubt the messages that have appeared right before his eyes, as everything that he has witnessed is real. He asked the system, "What's going on?" The system's reply was unsettling. It said it's the end of the world and a test for humans mixed with video games. He told it to stop the nonsense, but it insisted he ask carefully. Annoyed by the mechanical female voice, he thought about smashing through like in games, but he knew that wouldn't work here since it's only text and voice. The system said it'd add to the answer and opened a status window. He chuckled, seeing himself at level 1 with low stats. This strange message about games becoming real seemed true. The system explained he'd become a player, and gates had appeared worldwide, leading to monster-filled dungeons. He thought about training to save humanity, but had a more pressing question. He asked, why did the kid, the employee, and the guy in glasses become like this? The system didn't know. They might be natural-born players, it said. He sighed, and was about to reply, when the system made a strange, broken sound. He wondered what was wrong with it. Then the system showed that he was the only player who has not regressed, and to maintain the balance of the game, the player would receive a special skill. His curiosity grew as the system proceeded to search for this special skill. He asked the system what it meant to be the only one who didn't regress, and if everyone else had gone back in time. To his surprise, it was a word he'd heard many times on the brutal battlefield, regress. He'd often shouted it in frustration, wishing to return to the past. Now it all began to make sense. The game restarting, the ease with which ordinary people slaughtered the orcs, and the absurd words of the system, they were all true. Frustration welled up, and he couldn't help but curse in anger. He questioned if any of it made sense. It was at that very moment he realized that everyone had indeed regressed except him. He attempted to ask another question, but the system was busy searching for that elusive special skill. Suddenly, an old lady appeared, her face twisted in anger. She questioned what he was doing and urged him to join the fight, praising his earlier prowess. His anger flared, and he retorted that she hadn't uttered a word when the monsters were right in front of her, so she should remain quiet. She stood there, stunned into silence. He inquired if she had regressed as well, but she only replied with confusion, asking what regress meant. He tried to explain that it meant coming back to the past from the future, but she still didn't comprehend. However, this encounter brought another revelation. In addition to the strange monsters, the system messages revealed that only those who had become players had regressed. It was as if they were proving they were from the future. These players, including him, were strategically targeting the orcs' weak spots, a skill they seemed to have gained from their knowledge of the future. He realized, with a mix of confusion and awe, that he was the only one who didn't possess this foreknowledge. He shook his head, feeling like a massive headache was building up inside him. He knew he shouldn't rush into making any quick judgments. Just then, a man walked up to him, looking somewhat familiar, and asked if he could introduce himself. Bone was taken aback for a moment, but then he realized who this man was. He blurted out that this man was the reason he became a player, and he'd been searching for him his whole life. Bowen had travelled from dungeon to dungeon all across Korea, driven by the need to meet this man. The man before him, still bewildered, asked what was going on. In his confusion, Bowen explained that today was the turning point of his entire life. If this man hadn't helped him out and handed him a chainsaw, he would have remained a basement loser forever. The man, slowly comprehending the gravity of the situation, realized that Bowen was speaking as though he'd been to the future. Bowen, brimming with excitement, explained that the only reason he'd achieved any success as a player was because he saw this man as his role model. He asked if the man knew him well. With equal enthusiasm, Bowen replied that there wasn't a single player in Korea who didn't know him. He was Lee Wayun, the player who had conquered the final dungeon, and this revelation left the man shocked and confused. The term final dungeon was completely new to him. Just as he was about to say something, a lady and a kid ran over to them. The lady was thrilled and admitted that she hadn't realized back then that one of the people she had fought alongside in the beginning was him. The kid chimed in, sharing that the image of him entering the final dungeon while flipping off countless reporters was etched in his memory forever. To them, these people were the ones who had battled orcs, in other words, players who had regressed. Bowen expressed his interest in hearing about what happened in the final dungeon, but the man was still trying to grasp the situation. Everyone was talking about this place called the final dungeon. Suddenly, a system interface appeared in front of him, notifying him that the special skill search was completed. It urged him to check his status window. He hesitated for a moment, then opened it. His eyes widened in shock as he read the name of his special skill, Butterfly Effect, Level 1. It meant that he was the only one who hadn't regressed, and bonus points would be awarded for actions that changed the future. He knows exactly what the butterfly effect means, how the flutter of a butterfly's wings can cause a huge storm halfway around the world. As he gazed at the fluttering insect, his mind wandered to the bonus points it promised. But suddenly, a deafening crash from behind broke his concentration. Startled, they turned to see a horde of orcs pouring out of a swirling portal. Without hesitation, the players sprinted towards the approaching orcs. He raised his gun and fired, frustration gnawing at him. Of all times, why did more orcs have to appear? He knew being a player came with changes, like seeing a monster's name and level above its head. He aimed at an orc's head and squeezed the trigger, but the creature only glared back in anger, seemingly unfazed. Frustration turned to realization as he noticed the bullets left faint scorch marks. Even firearms couldn't penetrate the orc's tough skin. He remembered that simple close combat weapons worked because the people using them were regressors. They knew the orcs' weak spots, targeting their joints, which were relatively weaker. His gun seemed useless against these formidable foes. He decided against aiming for the joints, as the bullets were too small to do any significant damage. The orcs remained standing, a menacing presence. Desperation set in as he considered his options. He glanced around and spotted a chainsaw on the ground. The power of regression amazed him, but as his eyes lifted, he saw an axe a short distance away. Without hesitation, he abandoned the chainsaw for the axe, hoping it would be more effective against the approaching orcs. The system then revealed to him that the special skill butterfly effect had been activated, and he had altered the future, earning bonus points +1. His confusion lingered, and he pondered how he'd shifted the future. Setting the axe aside, he grasped the electric drill. Once again, the system displayed that he'd changed the future, awarding him bonus points +1. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.